I'm Rich Levene, and this is Meet Me at the Gate, where we're not just talking theory, we're tackling real-world problems head-on, driving solutions that supercharge productivity and team dynamics. Every episode is a journey towards improvement, empowering you, the manager, to lead with innovation and confidence. Join us to transform everyday roadblocks into highways for success.
I'm Kelly Kimball. I am a senior people and culture business partner in the automotive industry.
People and culture HR is people and culture. Is that kind of a newer term?
It is, yeah. So we're kind of, the HR world is rebranding ourselves as more of people and culture. It's really kind of going away from more of the administrative tasks and what we know about, like task taking, coordinating, things like that, and really looking to be a strategic partner with leaders and organizations, partnering in cultural.
Big word, strategic partner. What does that mean for a manager at an auction? So how are you going to help a manager in the automotive remarketing industry with strategy from HR?
Yeah, so partnering with the leaders, really knowing the business. I think that's another change that HR is undergoing, is really understanding the business and all the components that make it up. So then we're able to partner with the leaders of the business to put any kind of change that needs to happen, look at the org structures, how do we have people in the right roles, how do we meet the goals of the organization, and then also shift culture. So the way that we can do that is we have to really understand the business and how it works. So that's.
You said three big things. So we're going to try to remember that throughout the podcast. People, culture, and change. So Ty, at first of all, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Ty Thompson, transport guy. Company is Cars on the Move, 24 years in auto transport, specifically used. So dealer to auction, auction to dealer, repo to auction, and dealer trades.
As a transporter, hauling cars between dealerships, auctions, so whether it be a dealership or, let's say, an auction, what goes through your mind when you find out there's a new general manager, there's a new sheriff in town?
Once I find that, before I even worry about the new guy, I go find where did the old guy go that I used to do business with. Because 9 times out of 10, if I served him right and I did a good job, wherever he lands next, we're going to do business at that place that he's at now. Whether that's a dealership, an auction, or even a repo yard. Number one is I find out where did the guy that was here sitting there, where did he go? I don't even want to know why he's gone yet. He and I got along really well. We did a lot of business together, so I'm going to go find him. That's if we got along and we did a lot of business together. If we didn't, I really didn't worry too much about it. But I would follow up on it because there's always a potential for a lead there in my world. I'm a sales guy. I know how to have trucks and truck driving, how to load those things and unload them, and it's a big deal. But ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody does anything until somebody sells something. Now the new guy's here, right? I asked him where did he come from, because I'm going to probably go to where he came from and see if I can get his replacement to do business with me. So a lot of name dropping, right? Yeah, I listen to people. That's my biggest thing. I read a lot of body language, try to pay attention to the words coming out of their mouth and their eye contact and how they're moving. So when I'm dealing, especially with a used car manager or even a general manager at a new car store, I'm going to read them very well as best I can and listen to them. What do they want? 9 times out of 10 in my relationship with any kind of a dealer auction, there's really one thing they want, and I need my cars now. And the more you communicate with me as to where those cars are that I really want now, the better we'll get along and the more business we'll do. That's been my experience in this small ecosystem.
Our perspective, new managers in town, you're helping with the strategy, the people, the culture. What's the first thing you do when the new general manager is named to a site that you're seeing?
Ideally, you go and visit, spend some time, really get to know them, who they are as a leader, a little bit of their background, and what they're looking to accomplish. Right, how they're interacting with the teams. I think hearing you speak, Ty, there's some definitely similarities. Observing body language, understanding how they're interacting with their team. How is the team perceiving them? Kind of where are you going to go from there? So how are we going to get everyone aligned and meet all of the goals of the business and the new leader?
When Kelly was saying that, I thought, okay, wait a minute. What if this was somebody I didn't know? What if I'm just walking in cold? So a lot of times before I walk in cold and ask for the guy that's in charge, I go all the way to the back, like the porter or the detail guy, and I try to get a read on them. How long have you been here? What are you doing? how do you like the guy that tells you to hurry up and go do that? Is he nice about it? Is he a jerk about it? And I kind of get a gauge on people at the very low end because, my opinion, quality leadership, quality culture is affecting the people that maybe get overlooked the most. So if I'm going into a new store that I've never been, never done business with, and I finally get to the person that I want to talk to, one of the questions I'll ask was, how long was the guy here before you? Revolving doors tend to, in my experience, where you've got that general manager or the used car inventory manager, if that's a revolving door, there could be a problem there with the ownership. Somebody above those guys is making it so that nobody's staying here. And I always appreciated walking into a store where that guy's been there for 20 years.
And I think
but we're changing, right? So this is a change.
Right. I think there's some, like, if I were to relate it to like turnover in a company, there's some turnover that's okay, but continuous turnover and very high turnover does definitely tend to lead to like something is probably going on.
If I attack this thing and say, we're here to sell cars, I need you to improve check-in time, details need to be better, mechanic shop needs to do better, and just hit on all those things, what I call the processes, the products, the profits, and the plans, and not take care of the people, I'm gonna have a mutiny on my hands. And I think what happens a lot of times is, and why I want Kelly to help out, is we talk about a hierarchical structure. You're in charge, so you go deliver the message. But if your message is move the cars faster, check the cars in quicker, be more accurate, less arbitrations, more sales, the people are going to wear out and they're going to get tired. So we talk about a strategy. So we talk about a people-centric approach is we've got to build a foundation first. First thing we got to do is take care of the people. And how are we going to set that up is crucial to the success of whether or not this new manager, wherever they're going to be, is important.
Well, I'm thinking that everything you just said is real, right? That really happens. And so I think a lot, to me, managing anything is going to the person doing the job, watch them do the job, help them do the job, ask them about the job, spend a day, half a day, whatever you can, spend with them, observe what are their challenges, what are the opportunities, what can we do to help you, like you said in the beginning, which was instead of just coming in and saying, I need it faster, hurry, go, 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 the numbers, blah, blah, blah. If there's something going on in there and you don't know anything about it and you're just telling somebody to hurry up and do something, it's definitely not going to work. I think we all agree on that, right?
Yep.
So that brings in the issue of, okay, we're implementing change and we're going to do some different things. We do need to increase the speed at check-in because it's too slow. We do need to sell more cars because we need to grow the business. We do need to reduce arbitrations because that's a cost. But now how do we do that? And when you start forcing change, what does that cause? It causes grief. And then what happens? Employee A or employee B or employee C calls up Kelly. You know what? I really don't like the way this is going. They're making me do this, this, and this. So then what's your advice? How do you help a manager through that piece of, hey, they're changing everything and they moved my cheese and I don't like it?
When you were all talking, it's kind of two T's came to mind. It's trust and transparency. So talking about the change, I think one of the biggest pieces is coming in first as a new GM and like recognizing stuff will change. What I've seen in like history is being upfront and honest. I think it's super tough when people try to make team members feel a little bit easier saying like, nothing's going to change. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be the same. Like no matter what, there will be some change. So being transparent with the team right up front and building that trust. So then when it comes time to say, hey, we have to, check in cars faster, do all these things, make all these changes, you have the trust of the team first. So I think kind of having there's another team meetings, right? So bringing people together, having team meetings, talking to them, there's all of those things need to happen prior to really enacting the change, in my opinion.
So there's three things I always say that build trust: consistency, accuracy, and transparency. You take it in, and as a manager, we were talking about a GM, so it's a new GM, but let's talk about maybe it's a new fleet lease manager, maybe it's a new general sales manager, front office manager. This can apply to anywhere. So when somebody comes in, they've got to be consistent in their actions and understand what they're doing. They need to be accurate with their actions. So what I mean by accuracy, well, if you really don't know what you're doing, you don't have any practical skills and where you're at, it's going to come out and it's going to be kind of transparent. You've got to have a little bit of background and know the business. And then the other side is the transparency, and that's the honesty, being honest with people and telling them exactly what your vision is and where you want to go and what you want to do. So you build those things up and you start building trust. But now the other side of this is, as soon as you start doing this, there's what I call 4 stages of a team. So a new manager comes in. First thing they do is they go through a stage called forming. The second thing, they go through a stage called storming. Third stage is norming. And the fourth stage is high performing. So the goal is to get to high performing. But this is a change process. We just talked about that. And it takes time. So a new person comes in. What happens? Everybody's out on their best behavior, right? Okay, we've got a new manager in the department, new manager at the facility, whatever it is. Everybody's on their best behavior. And now we're in that forming stage. And nobody is really showing up as their true, authentic self. They're being somebody else. Start making changes, people come along and they're like, start storming because they get uncomfortable and they don't like the changes. You know, I liked the way we were doing the check-in process. I liked the way we were doing CRs. I liked the way we cleaned cars or did arbitration. I liked it when we ran dealer cars in lane 1 and fleet in 2 and commercial in 3, but now you want to flip-flop it when people start getting uncomfortable.
Top of that too, with people being uncomfortable, it's with the new GM, they're questioning their roles, right? Where do they fit in? What's their role? Are they going to find that I don't know what I'm doing or that I do know what I'm doing? So when you push that change, it just creates all kinds of uncertainty. So I think going back to the transparency, being able to have honest conversations with team members about what is happening and where they fit in the organization is super important along the change process as well.
Well, Rich, you said something a minute ago, and does this really happen? You said, okay, so the guys doing the actual work are like, man, I got a problem with this. So we call Kelly and we tell Kelly, man, I really got a problem with this. Does that really happen, Kelly?
Yeah. Yes.
So to me, there's a problem right there. Why can't they go to the guy that's telling them to do it the way they don't like it?
I think there's 2. Sometimes people have relationships with people in culture or HR where we want them to be able to come to us and talk. And I think one of the questions will be like, have you talked to them about this? Or can you have a conversation with a new GM about it? We'll kind of have those conversations and figure that part out. Sometimes they don't want to go to them, right? Or sometimes it's just the relationship is built and it's okay to have parts of that conversation too.
Let's go back to what she said earlier too, and talking about what is the strategy behind human resources, or she said people and culture. Traditionally, human resources is a resource for the employee to go to for help when somebody feels uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Change causes grief. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to what they believe is safe. They believe HR is safe. And here's where it gets dicey, I believe. And I've done a bunch of reading about this, is who pays HR? Who does HR work for?
Usually corporate.
Exactly.
Right.
So when things get really tough and you have a problem, if you don't have a relationship with your manager and you go to HR, which side ultimately is HR on? Where does their paycheck come from? What guiding principles do they have? What's in the handbook? All those things start trickling down, and that's when the hierarchy starts coming into play. Ultimately, you're paid by the organization that you work for, and they have policies, and you need to help enforce them. So you're going to look out for the side of the employer, not the employee, despite the fact that the employee usually thinks that you're there to protect them.
Fair. In a lot of regards. I think part of what we talked about in the beginning of the shift from like HR to people and culture is historically people would go to HR with like grievances or their complaints and their issues. What we're moving more towards and where I would like to act is more of a partner, to listen to them, to talk through situations with them and to help solve the problems and to have that conversation about like, hey, have you went to your manager? This is the strategy. Like, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I've learned and observed about the business, to be able to help some of that. So it's not just here's all my issues and thinking that we're like bad and siding really only on the side of the company. So shift takes time. And so it depends on what someone's experience is with HR in the past. Sometimes it could be good. Sometimes it could be bad, but we're really trying to be that partner to both the company and the employees.
And there's another thing in here, talking about the hierarchical piece. A lot of people don't like to go to their new manager because then they have to manage up, or they have to lead up the chain of command, not leading down the chain of command. So in a situation like this, when somebody feels the pressure or the stress or they feel the grief from the change, they call HR because they don't want to fight the hierarchical structure. hey, if I go to my boss and say, I don't like this, that looks like it could be a complaint. Kelly, you and I have worked together, and one of the things that I did to you when I became a new manager is I went straight to you and said, hey, here's my vision. Here's what I want to do. Here's the plan. How can you support me? What do I need to change? And where do we go from here?
Exactly.
So traditionally, though, that begs the question, how many new managers go straight to Kelly and line that out? Is that common?
No. Right. So I think in this industry, maybe not. It depends, again, what someone's background has been and how they've interacted with HR. I would say it's getting more common, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of rebranding too. What do you call it? People culture?
People and culture. Yep.
People and culture. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Does the general manager at the auction or business go to you, Kelly, and say, hey, I need your help me how to deal with this? How does that work?
Sometimes it depends on relationship that you have and the partnership that you have. It depends because it can be really like the business partner can be involved in any aspects of the business or of like what issues and challenges that they're having. But really the focus is more on like employee related. So employee related, okay. What's going on in the company. Sometimes it does get into like, this is a tough situation that I'm working through. Like, how do I handle that? It's anything that's encompassing in the day-to-day work with more of a focus on the culture and the happenings inside of the business.
Inside the business. Okay. Got it. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're a new manager, or maybe you're not even a new manager. Maybe you're an experienced manager and you have a new product or a new procedure that you need to do. Something new's coming along the line. And now you need to change it with your team, which can create all kinds of disruptions, including affect somebody like you, Ty. So let's say we're putting in a new piece of transportation software that's going to help us move cars faster. That's probably going to cause you grief, Ty, because I'm going to say, hey, look, I got a new app you have to use, and now you have to sign in through this app, and you have to deliver the cars using this application. Is that not going to make you squirm?
Well, so this is where I got rid of all my trucks, and now I help car haulers build a business, right? So first thing you have to do is it'd be easy for me to say, I don't like that and I don't want to do it. But for you, just cause. And then walk around with a kind of a bad attitude, kicking rocks in the parking lot and talking under my breath. You know what I'm saying? Versus, I like you, Rich. We've done a lot of business together. I'll tell you what, I got 2 hours on Monday around noon. I'm going to come over. It was noon good for you because I want to be able to give you my undivided attention. I want to see this app. I want to see how it helps you. Who does it affect? Does it affect the auction sales reps? Are they going to be putting this information in there on the cars that I'm going to go get you? I don't really need another app. I don't really want another app. But if it's going to help you, then in turn, it's going to help me because I want to pick up more cars for you. So if you're a business person and you're thinking about it, it may be an inconvenience or it may be a change that you're not really into right now. But in the long run, if you're a long gamer like I am, you're going to sit down, you're going to take the time, you're going to give it the attention that it's needed and care because, again, to me, this is a relationship business. And I like you. We've been doing business. We've had our ups and downs. You've been mad at me. I've been mad at you, but we're still doing it. So I want to do my best to understand it and do it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So let's take that same application, and now we have a manager at work that has to implement this application with the rest of the team, and possibly including check-in and maybe some other people that'd be involved. Maybe it's even the front office customer service. So now I need you to do this new app. And if you're a manager, there's probably going to be a few ways you're going to go about it. You can have a meeting. You can send out an email. You can create a memo. And all those things are all events. Those are not going to change the process. So what you have to do is what Ty just said, is you have to build that relationship with your employees, and you have to walk them and meet them where they're at and say, okay, I need to use this application, and then you need to share the vision with them and the purpose behind it, because without vision or purpose, there's no motivation for them to move forward.
Well, see, and this is a really good example because this really not necessarily technology. I got rid of all my trucks before technology became the new thing where you had to have everybody's app, but there were changes that were made. So it gets interesting because if I've got 20 drivers that come in and out of your auction on a weekly basis, I'm going to have to educate them as to the change that we're all going to be dealing with now. So the more time I spend with you, the more time I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the why is always the big question. Why? Well, we can track it better. We can monetize the data. We can use the, whatever you want to do, whatever you tell me, just give me a why. It doesn't even have to really make sense. If I understand that this has the potential to benefit you as a vendor to you, I want to fully understand it, because I'm going to take this to my 20 drivers and my 10 owner operators, and I'm going to say, here's the why. Now let's figure it out. We walk through it. Here's the step 1, step 2, step 3. Any questions? No. Knowing that they're going to mess it up, right? Probably for the first month. But that's where the patience comes in. That's why I mean that, Rich, I'll be there Monday from noon to 2. I know you're a busy guy. If we need to change the schedule, fine. But I really want to have your undivided attention, and I really want you to explain to me what we're doing, because it's important to me. Yeah, and send it to all my guys. Yeah.
Okay, so you just told me you have 20 drivers that you need to implement that application to.
Yeah.
How 20 drivers going to learn how to use that application at the same time?
No, and so, back to the original, it's like I can sit here and give you the easy pushback. We can all do that. I don't want to do that. That's stupid. It takes up too much time. It doesn't even make sense, honestly, Rich. I mean, we've already taken pictures of the car. Now you want me to take more pictures of the car? Because we have our own app, Rich, and we take our own pictures. So why can't we just give you our pictures? Why do we have to download your app and use your app to take the same pictures of the same car that we just did? I mean, my guys just want to unload the stuff and get out of there. We're on a time clock. We have these things in our truck. They're called ELDs, and it's a ticking time bomb. And we only have this much. I mean, I can go off all day on why I don't want to do it, right? But if I sit down with you and we engage in a meaningful conversation, there's a chance that we may even figure out, oh, we're duplicating efforts. I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, so what if we change it over here and we do it like this? Would that work for you, Rich? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's try that.
You just
no, that won't work for me, Rich. Okay. Okay, let's go this way.
You just hit the question you were asking earlier. So, Kelly, what Ty just said is now the employee that's calling you. Hey, the new general manager, the new manager of the department, the new transportation manager wants me to use this application. I got to do my job. I got 8 hours today to get all my production done, and this and this and this and this aren't working. That's the phone call you get. How do you handle it? Because it does happen. That's real life.
Learning more. I mean, I think if I have an understanding of what the goal is, and if it's been lined up appropriately, of being like communicated, team meetings, transparency, talking about the goals, like what are we trying to achieve, what's the why, I'm able to kind of talk through some of that with the employee about being like, yeah, it's going to save time, and it's, whatever the reasons are of why the change is being implemented, hear them out. But most times there's usually something else that's going on. So listening to that employee, trying to understand what is it? It might be about the change, or it might not. It might be that they're burned out, they're not engaged, they're nervous about the change, they're nervous about their role, they have something else going on outside of work. What is really going on? You'll learn a lot from that conversation that's being pushed and driven by the change. Might not necessarily be about the change.
See, this is interesting, but the reason I still look like this is I just got back from a meeting from an auction, independent auction. And one of the conversation with the general manager of this auction, actually owner, is you don't have any commercial accounts, no lenders, no remarketers. Do you want some? Yeah, I'd love some. Okay. So rather than, this is really how the conversation went. Rather than talk about the lenders and how can we get them and what are we going to do, I went with your operations. Let's talk about your operations for a minute. Do you think that your operations team can handle an extra 100 cars a week? Oh, yeah. Well, time out. Do you do condition reports right now? Well, we can. No, but we take pictures and we put them up. Okay, well, who does that job? Mm-hmm. Cracks the window open. Billy over there. Billy does it. I'm like, all right, I'm watching Billy, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a challenge, because Billy, you can tell, does it his way, right? So looking at the operations of this thing, talking to this guy about, yeah, I want commercial accounts. Yeah, I want another 100 cars. Who doesn't, right? Okay, but do you understand what the requirements, what the expectations are from a commercial account? Do you know? Well, maybe kind of. Do you know they have scorecards? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so before we get excited about getting accounts, let's talk about our operations team. So first the car comes in. What are we going to do with it? Well, most lenders want photos. They want a condition report. Do you have that technology? No, not really. But we have auto IMS. Okay. And you have phones? Yeah. Okay. So you can see real clear in this meeting today that it really goes to boots on the ground. That's where it's at. So this conversation to me that we're having, it's the people doing the work. Those are the people that are going to have the complaints. Those are the people that are going to be most concerned. Those are the people that are going to give you the most pushback, because these are the people that have done it the way they're doing it. And you told me to do it this way. I've been doing it this way, the way you told me for the last 5 years, and now what are you talking about? So you can see real clear when you walk into a situation like this, there's going to be absolute shock. So anyway, it's interesting we're having this conversation, because this is real, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Very real. So bringing on a new customer is going to create change. Even if it's a small customer that says it's dealer consignment cars and you're going to bring a count of 10, someone's got to do the work, right? Depending on what your size of your auction. I used this quote several times, and I heard it the very, very first night of my master's course. It was Dr. Ralph Goring, and he said, never care more about your plans, your products, or your processes than you do the people. How many times did you say the word relationship tonight?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a relationship with your employees, wherever you're at in the management chain, if you don't have that relationship, you're going to have employees that are going to call Kelly and say, Kelly, I don't like this change. Well, what does that boil down to? You as a manager do not have a strong enough relationship with that employee.
Yep.
Yeah. And so as this conversation kept going, because the guy that I'm talking to is definitely not the guy that is the warmest, the most approachable. He's 6'4", and he'd probably rather kick you than talk to you, that kind of guy. But if you get to know him, great guy, do anything for you. And so as we're having this conversation, I'm kind of pointing out, I think you're going to maybe have a problem here. I think you're probably going to have a big problem here, and I don't know about this one. And he's looking at me like I'm from Mars. I'm saying, okay, here's part of the deal. Part of the negotiation is let me take care of that for you. Just put it in part of the package, whatever you want to do, call it. I'll take care of that. I'll go talk to the people. I'll show the people how to do it. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. And it's almost like a self-awareness where like, yeah, I know I'm not good at that job. Again, to have that relationship with that guy who might intimidate everybody, to be able to have a conversation and say, I'd be happy to alleviate that problem off of you, the communication with the people and blah, 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 was very encouraging for me, because it's something new for the team, and I like to see if I can make things work. I'm just that kind of weirdo, right? I think Rich might be a little bit like that too.
Give me a challenge. Give me a challenge.
Reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the conversation is very relevant, and I believe that I think what I hear Kelly saying, the people and culture is really the way to make this work. The people and the culture, and I think also that's what you're saying too, Rich, right? Mm-hmm. And on your P's there that you just rattled off.
So there's 4 of them: plans, profits, products, and production. And then the 5th P is people. Say now,
people.
I've witnessed this a lot of times, especially in organizations that might be publicly driven or very heavily leveraged, where it's like, hey, we've got to make money. We've got to make more money. You're not making enough money. And then what does that transfer into? And so that message gets passed down. And the next thing you know, hey, we're doing this change and I need you to do it faster because we're going to cut this out. And then if you miss the people part, you're not going to get the change you want. So in any change process that you're doing, you have to put the people first. You talked about it. You said, hey, this guy you have could be difficult. Well, I studied the DISC theory, and there's 4 different behaviors, and each one of those fit into a different thing. And once you start understanding where they're at, so let's go back to your 20 truck drivers you talked about. You have to teach this out. Guarantee you every one of them is not dominant. Every one of them is not inspiring. They're not all steady, and some of them are going to be compliant. And the one guy that comes up to you and says, hey, you've mentioned your ELD, your electronic logging device. Okay, well, I've got to have that. Okay, that's your compliant guy. He wants to follow the rules. And then you're going to have the guy that's just like, this is going to take a while, Ty. I got to change. That's yeah, exactly. And he's not going to say it quite like that. That's going to be your dominant guy. Your dominant guy is going to be, I already know what I'm doing. Get in my face. You're slowing me down. The steady guy that I talked about earlier he's going to take a long time. You're going to have to work with him. And then you got the inspiring guy. Instead, what's going to happen there is inspiring tend to be your time wasters. And what do I mean by that? Well, they want to meet you at the gate. They want to talk. They want to have some coffee. Hey, do you got any leftover donuts? Hey, what do you think about the football game last night? Did you watch the basketball game? Hey, what are you doing this summer? You got any vacations coming up? Hey, I need you to focus on the task at hand, and that's this new application. Hey, I think maybe we should go out to lunch right now. That's your yellows, your inspirations. And so you take all those different behavior types, and nobody's going to learn process at the same speed. And that's where I was going with earlier and said, hey, how long is it going to take these people to learn? Because everybody's going to learn at a different pace. A dominant doesn't learn in one day. Every dominant learns in a different amount of time. So every individual has a different learning curve.
Here's a real life example, Rich. Like I didn't have the app like I told you earlier, but I would have, because this particular part of the industry, auto transport, you don't just pick a guy off the road who knows how to drive an 18-wheeler and say load 9 cars on the trailer. So it's an actual skill. It's a real trade. You can learn it, or if you got a guy who already knows it, you don't want him to leave, right? So turnover, when I had all these 20 drivers and trucks and everything, was less than 2%. Like when I got a guy, he stayed. And the reason, I think, is because you start having to do some trading as the guy that's in charge. So if I'm arrogant, if I'm dominant, and I'd say this is how we're doing it, this is how we're doing it, you're not going to have car hauler guys around, right? So you start learning some give and take. And I think this is maybe where Kelly comes in. Still work with the guy, but I may not want him to go to Rich's auction because I know he's going to mess it up, and we've already gone through this 3 times. So I will literally reroute entire trucks to make sure this guy does not go there. I need him as a driver. He's good. He's just not built for this. And like I did that for years, and it really aggravated the crap out of me, but we just switch things around and make it work.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I think another common theme too is around finding out what motivates people. One, it sounded like when you were doing your sale, Ty, it's about who you were selling to, what motivates them, what are their needs, what are their, things that they are looking for. And it's also the same for the disc, the different people, right? It's what's motivating each of the different styles. Also what's motivating people during their change, hitting them what they're going to grasp onto and what's going to help them and make their lives easier.
Well, and you're right, because see, this is funny. I thought my number one motivator was making money. And I thought everybody else thought exactly like I did. Why would you not want to make money? I mean, I just gave you the best load in the world. I know you're a little tired and I know you want to go home, but that's another $800 in your pocket for a 5-hour turn. I mean, what are you thinking? And once I figured out, I got to get out of the way here because not everybody's motivated by money, which is a real shocker to me, honestly. I mean, it really blew me away. But once I was able to understand, okay, this guy, he just wants to go home. That's it.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Same thing with a manager at the auction in a department wants to implement change. And if that manager doesn't have self-awareness and believes that everybody's motivated by the same things that they are, all the people they're trying to get to do are not going to follow because they're not meeting them where they're at. And that's where that self-awareness comes in. You have to understand what you do and how it affects other people. What I define ego as is waking up every day, walking through the world, and expecting everybody to take what you have because that's exactly what they need. And that's not the case. Ty, at one point in time, you had an ego because you woke up every day, went to work and said, I think everybody wants to make money. Well, that was your ego getting away because that's what you believe in, it's self-limiting values. And as managers, you have to understand that what's motivating you and what you want to have done might not be what's going to inspire or motivate the person across from you.
And two, another since I'm being pretty transparent right now, I always thought everybody understood that the car dealer really wanted their cars yesterday. I would say stuff like, my expectation is for you to be there in 2 hours. I'll give you an hour to load it, and I got you another 3 hours to drive back. So you got 6 hours to handle this. The dealer wants these cars. 8 hours later, I find out they're still not even there yet.
So,
I know, I was going to say, why? What happened? What's the bearing, right?
What happened?
So I would literally get in my car, and I would drive and find the driver, and I would pull in aside, and I would say, let's have a conversation. We had this one, I think it was last Monday at our drivers meeting. Remember when we were talking about dealers want their cars? So here's what time I told you to go. Here's what time I expected. I told you these things, remember? Yeah. Okay, well, just sign this piece of paper here that we had this talk, and hopefully you can do a better job next time. This is part of the job, and this is my expectation because it's our customer's expectation. I might have 20 drivers and 10 owner-operators. That's 30, but I've got 425 car dealers calling me, asking me where their cars are or where are the keys every day. So the more that you understand, I really need you to go stay on the schedule, go. The more money you make, there we go again. All right. The better the odds of you having a job are. That's eventually what I boiled it down to. If you can help me the better you'll have a job here for life. And eventually it works. So there's a lot of people always ask me before, I mean, I blew it when in the intro, but they would say, who are you? What do you do? I'd say I'm a psychiatrist. Yeah, well, I'm actually a psychiatrist. I spend most of my time getting people to go do their job in a management kind of way. So
you knew that was coming.
I felt it.
So take this and apply this to at an auction, and you're working with an employee, and the employee so you're using a new piece of software to check in cars. Hey, I need you to check in 25 cars today. That was my expectation. You didn't get it done. Why'd you not get it done? So what I try to do and how I try to coach people is say, all right, I need you to walk up to them and I need you to ask them I need you to rephrase the questions. Number one, how's it going? What's working well for you right now? Oh, I think it's really cool because it's really easy to put in the year, make, and model. Okay, great. What's not working well? Well, when I go to the color thing, it like disappears and I can't get the color right, and then it wipes it all out, and then I got to go start all over again. I didn't know that. You got to be kidding. So now we've had a conversation. Okay, so Mr. Check-in employee, Mrs. Check-in employee, how can I help you with that? Well, if you could like maybe put in some technical specs or send in a help ticket or get a hold of IT and tell them what this problem is, we could probably come to this faster. But if you don't have that conversation, you don't ask those three questions. The three questions that I think every manager should ask every employee is, what's working well, what's not working well, and how can I help you? It'll change the game.
So I guess the question I would have for Kelly would be, Kelly, as a people and culture person within an organization, how much time do you spend with the manager educating them as to here are the three questions you should be asking?
One of the things that I would say is the manager has to be open because it's changed for them in some cases. Some managers come in and they have that philosophy and that want and drive to lead their people in that way, and some don't. So that takes some time in order to get the manager, in order to change, to understand that their people are what is important. So I think it totally is the role of the business partner to be able to have those conversations with the leaders. I mean, it goes back to seeing how they show up for their teams. It kind of helps lead to that. I think one of the things, Rich, when you were talking about that, is showing up with good intent. The questions that you're asking is showing people that you're showing up with good intent. You're not automatically going to them of what is wrong, right? You're coming with it like a positive scenario instead of coming at it negatively. And I think that approach changes people's minds drastically. But not coming in right away and saying, what did you do wrong? You didn't hit the number that I needed you to hit. You're coming at it of how is it working, right? The very first thing is a positive, and then it's what needs improvement, and then it is what's in it for them.
And then so the manager's going to ask the next question. So I threw 25 out there. All right, so let's say they're at 15, and you start working on this process. Okay, so it takes more than one event for change to occur. All right, so let them use the app for a little while. Walk out there 2-3 days later. Hey, I got the ticket in. They made some changes. How's the app working for you now? What's working well? Oh, it's much better. This is working and I'm able to put the color in. But you know what? When I get down to the sub model on the trim level, not everything's in there that I need. And if I don't get the trim levels right, I know it's going to hit arbitration and then they're going to get arbitrated and then we're going to lose money and it's not going to work. So I need some help on that because it's taking me way too long to fill this out. How can you help me with that? So if we keep having these conversations, now we're going to be able to move forward and we build a plan where we have progress and we're showing growth and we're showing development every day versus going back and saying, hey, I need 25 cars checked in today and you needed 15. So if you can't get this fixed in 30 days, you're out of here. That's not a conversation anybody wants to have. Ty, if you can't move all 425 cars in 6 hours, you're fired. And I know you've heard that from dealers before.
I'm sitting here trying to think like, wow, people don't know how to talk to people. That's real. They really don't. They come at you with, why didn't you get this done? And for some reason in my mind, I'm like, that really is just hard to believe, but it is. It really happens. Do we look at the person that's coming at you with, how come you're not getting this done? I mean, to me, because look, like you just said, if I go and I approach this guy in the right attitude, the right mindset, I'm here to help you, I think you're going to have a retention for your employees that's going to be off the charts. You're going to retain good people, and I think you would want that. I don't think you want turnover, do you? I mean, what's it, Rich, you've been around the auction world, or even Kelly, what's it cost to train and hire one new person? I mean, there's a pretty significant cost to that from what I understand.
Good question. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but yeah, it's not, and especially with recruitment right now, sometimes it can take quite a while. You could go without an individual for quite a while, which is not ideal in a lot of scenarios.
I'm assuming that there's somebody that can help the auction with their operations, procedures, systems, with their people and culture. There's people that can help with that, right?
Oh yeah, there's good consultants out there that can help that. There's also people within HR that can help it, and there's probably experts within the organization that can help you with those things, as long as they understand the dynamics of human behavior and how to marry it all together. So one major misconception that I believe exists all across business, especially in the United States, is that once you've been given the title manager, you're automatically a leader. Being a manager is not the same as being a leader. Leaders have people that want to follow them. Managers have people that have been assigned to follow them. As a manager, you got to make that leap to become the leader, to get the people that are reporting to you that have to follow you, want to follow you. So it puts them in an interesting dynamic where they've got to show these skills. But with the hierarchy, and let's go back to an industrial revolution. What was the industrial revolution about? How much can we produce? How fast can we produce it? And how low can we drive down these costs to make more money? That's been transparent all the way through until right now. And actually, it's been really apparent until COVID hit. And then people started to say, wait a second, is everything all about money, or is there more to life than just making money, like having a balance? So now we got this unique dynamic going on right now. If you continue to focus on the 4 Ps, the plans, the processes, the profits, and the products, and not put the people first, I don't think you're going to survive as a manager or as a business. It's just not going to work. And there's another dynamic coming in too. For the first time since the Industrial Revolution, you have 4 generations of people in the workplace. You've got boomers, you've got Gen Xers, you've got Gen Y, and you have millennials. So you are Gen Zs. You have all 4 of these all together, and they've never had to work together. You put a boomer in the same room with a Gen Z, and they are so far apart in how they think and see things that it's really difficult to get along. The boomers, they're the ones born from the greatest generation when they came back from World War II, and they're all about what their parents taught them. You go to work, you do this, and this is exactly how you do it. They live by that. That's their mantra. You take a Gen Z person now, and you tell them that, that's not what's important to them. Kelly's going to know more about what's important to these younger people coming in than I am. But it's not doing that first.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, accurate. There's a lot of very big differences, right? But I mean, again, it goes back to what we talked about before, is understanding the people, having the conversation, finding out what does motivate them. I mean, you even gave the example, Ty, of the guy who wanted to go home to his family, right? I mean, it's one of those work-life balance, having the flexibility, not working long hours, being able to go and do whatever, travel to different places. It's very different. Some of the values from a long time ago are not quite the same, and that's okay. It's just understanding how to motivate your people and how to get them to feel successful and feel good about coming to work every day.
So when you're leading people, and anytime you're doing things, if you don't have change, you don't need leadership. Because if everything stayed the same and everything was working just fine and never needed to change, you would never need leadership. Management, sure. Leadership, no. So what is the one thing that every human being has in common, regardless of where they're born, what religion they are, the color of their skin, or any other preferences? There's one thing every human being has in common. They all want respect. So if you learn how to respect people, I call it dignity. So if you learn how to treat somebody with dignity, so you show them love, you show them the respect. And I challenge my team all the time. If somebody comes in, a dealer comes in, a transporter, Ty walks in, he's all pissed off because he can't find his 425 cars out on our lot to get them loaded up so he can get them to the dealership in 6 hours, and now he's all frustrated and pissed off. What's the one thing that Ty wants out of anything else, even if we're sick and tired of Ty when he walks in there? You just want respect, right? You want me to treat you like a real human being and say, Ty, what's going on? How can I help you? And I challenge that. I work on that myself. You go to the fast food places. I've watched people treat people working at fast food like crap. I walk in there, and what's the one thing that employee wants behind the counter? They just want to be treated well. I go out of my way for the people on the lower end of the totem pay scale than the ones on the higher end. I probably treat the high people, if they make a lot more money, more poorly than I treat the ones on the lower, because they want respect. But I got to stop myself and say, all right, what does this person want? How can I help them? They just want respect. The dealer that walks in and wants to arbitrate a car for the 13th time this week, what does he really want? Respect.
One of the things that I really saw work for me was when I would literally be doing the job with the employee, right? What does that mean? Well, you know what car haulers hate more than anything? They hate going to auctions. Do you know why? Because they can't find the cars. It burns up so much time, a lot of walking, a lot of problems. So one of the things I made sure I did on a daily basis, literally, was I would be at an auction and my drivers would come in and I would help them find their cars. A lot of times I'd even try to get them out before, but they would see that, oh, that's the boss guy. He owns the company and he's doing the lowest job you can do. That pulling cars is the absolute lowest job you can do. And I'm just walking through there pulling cars. This is what I don't get though is okay, you've mentioned this, you've kind of touched around it, Rich, but corporate says to the general manager, I need 800 cars a week, not 400. What are you doing? Or I need give me another example. I don't know. What's a good example that corporate would come down and say, we got to do this. This really has to happen.
We got to increase your EBITDA by 5% in 3 months.
Okay, so when you hear that, what does that mean? You've got to.
It means you got to squeeze the lemon to get a little more lemonade out. So how are you going to do that? That's when it comes into change. So how are you going to go about that? If you run out and you attack the problem directly, like you're saying, hey, we need to increase 5%, and I need you to do this, this, and this more. What does that do? Then you're talking about your plans, your processes, your productivity, and your products. That's not going to get you your 5% increase. You're going to have to put the people first. All right, what am I going to do to get my 5%? Okay, well, I need to go talk to Ty because Ty's doing really well for me, but I know I can do a little better. Hey, Ty, I got something for you. I said, I need some help. All right, we got to increase the bottom line a little bit. So number one, tell me right now what's working really well for you and what can we do more of to help us get there? Number two, Ty,
that's a great
what's
example.
not working? What do I got to get rid of in order to get you to produce more so you can help us out? And then you're going to tell me. And then what's my third question going to be? What can I do to help you? That's how you get the 5% squeeze. 3 questions.
Okay. And it's doable. I mean, I'm assuming that when corporate comes in and asks for 5%, I'm assuming they understand it is doable. Is that fair?
It doesn't have to be doable. If the investor, so if there's an investment firm, or let's say it's a stock price, and you've got to hit earnings for Wall Street. So let's say we're publicly traded, you got to hit earnings for Wall Street. They're going to tell you what number you got to be at. They're going to run their forecast and say, here's where you have to be. It might not be 5%. It might be 6, it might be 7, it might be 3. It might be doing, hey, guess what? I know you're 10% over budget, but we've got a bunch of other auctions in our group or a bunch of other facilities or whatever it is, a bunch of dealerships in our group, and we need you to squeeze a little harder because you're going to help out all your teammates, all your peers. And you still have to.
I've actually seen that from a transport side. I've seen that. So that is real.
So let's do this.
I think it's an interesting conversation. Yeah.
You could give advice to a manager, Ty. What's the one piece of advice you'd give a manager at an auction when they're facing change and they got to implement change?
Definitely go to your people. My advice is I would assume you've done the job, but go do it again beside the guy doing it today. Go to where you're trying to make the cut, make the improvement, whatever it is you think you're trying to accomplish. I don't care. What do you got to do, but go to it. That's my advice.
Walk the talk, right?
Yeah. You earn respect. You gain the trust that we're talking about. And it's a beautiful thing because it can remind you, man, that's how I started, or man, I remember I didn't realize how much I hated that job, right? And is it fair to say that most general managers of an auction have done every job at the auction at least once? Is that fair or not?
I would say yes in one capacity or another. They're usually going to have a specialty where, let's say they came up through the sales side, so they've done everything on the sales side. That may have had them get outside and maybe do a couple other things. Accounting, they've all been through the bean counters. They've seen all the different departments. One way or another, they've touched it, whether directly or indirectly. And then you got your ops people. So I come up through the ops side, and that's what I had to learn was I was learning all the processes, all the stuff. I remember when they put me in a car to go do sales, I've never done accounting. I don't think they'd ever trust me to do accounting. That's a skill set you got to have. But I've seen all different kinds of general managers make it. With the sales guy, you can walk into an auction. You can probably walk into a dealership. Let's stick with auto auctions. And you can start having a conversation with general manager. And probably in 5 minutes, I'll be able to tell you which part of the auction they came up through. They come up through ops, they come up through front office admin, or they come up through sales, or they come up through accounting. I can pretty much tell you based on how they answer questions what their expertise is. All right, Kelly, so it's to you. What advice are you gonna give?
It's very similar. Talk to the people, build that relationship, communicate, find out what motivates them. And I would completely agree is get in the trenches, do the work with them and be alongside them to help.
My advice, put people first. Make sure you care more about people than you do plans, processes, products, or profits. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Meet Me at the Gate. I hope the conversation has helped to fuel your drive and equip you with insights to steer your team towards success. Remember, the road to success is always under construction. And until next time, keep your engines revving and your gas tanks full.